Hey there, before we dive in, a quick note. This podcast is an experiment in AI. Both the co-hosts and the entire conversation you're about to hear are generated by AI technology based on content and ideas owned by Danny Brown. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this unique AI-powered experience.
All right, so you're thinking about starting a podcast and you're pumped, right?
Right.
But then you stumble upon this whole 10,000 downloads thing, and suddenly it feels like you need a stadium full of listeners just to get started. Sound familiar?
Yeah, it's a common misconception. The podcasting world can get a little fixated on those download numbers, which, let's be real, can be super intimidating for someone just starting out.
It's like everyone in the podcast movement was obsessed with that magic number.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll admit I've definitely caught a case of download envy myself a time or two.
It's easy to get caught up in that comparison game.
It really is. But prepping for this deep dive, I was reminded that those download numbers, while important, don't tell the whole story.
You got it. Downloads are just one piece of the puzzle, not the be-all and end-all of podcasting success.
So what about those hyper-local podcasts? The ones with super niche audiences.
Those can be absolute gold mines. We found this one example, a podcast all about sustainable living in a small town.
Get out.
I know, right?
Okay, so how many listeners? Like 100,000?
Try 100.
100. And they're making bank.
They snagged a $5,000 sponsorship deal with a local farmer's market. They found their people, their perfect audience.
That's amazing. It's all about that connection, that niche.
Exactly.
So listeners, if you're passionate about something, even if you think it's obscure, there's probably a whole community of people out there just waiting to connect over it.
Oh, absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of niche. And this is exactly why we need to move beyond downloads as the ultimate measure of success.
Which brings us to another myth that I hear all the time. Anyone can podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, sure, technically anyone with a smartphone can hit record, but it's like saying anyone can write a novel. It takes a lot more than just the tools to be successful.
You're preaching to the choir. The technology has become incredibly accessible, and that's amazing. But just like any creative endeavor, podcasting requires a lot more than just hitting record. Planning, dedication, consistency.
Oh, and let's not forget all those hats we wear as podcasters. Researcher, writer, editor, sound engineer, marketer, social media guru. The list goes on and on.
And sometimes therapists to our co-hosts.
You said it. Seriously, I need a nap just thinking about it all.
Well, all of that contributes to why we see such a high failure rate in the podcasting world.
Oh, is that right? What's the statistic on that?
One study we found said that a whopping 80% of podcasts fizzle out before they even hit 10 episodes.
80%? That's kind of terrifying.
It's a reality check for sure.
But hey, that's what we're here for, to separate fact from fiction and give you the knowledge to beat the odds. Okay, so we've talked about downloads and the effort it takes to make a podcast. But you know what else gets me? All the gear. I get serious equipment envy sometimes.
Oh, tell me about it. Those mics, the headphones. It's like you need a whole recording studio to even think about starting,
Right, like I used to think I needed a soundproof booth and a super expensive microphone. Turns out you can achieve a lot with a little creativity.
Absolutely. Creating a good recording environment is so much more important than having all the fancy equipment.
Okay, so what are your best tips for getting good sound without breaking the bank?
Well, one of the biggest things is echo, and that usually comes from having a lot of hard surfaces around. Bare walls, hardwood floors.
Makes sense.
But you don't need to go crazy with soundproofing. Just try hanging some blankets or putting some cushions around your recording space. Even thick curtains can help.
Like a pillow fort for podcasting.
Exactly. And don't forget about soft furniture. That comfy armchair could be your new best friend.
I love it. Simple solutions.
Oh, and here's another one that people often overlook. Microphone technique. Get close to that mic, but not too close.
Goldilocks style. I like it.
Find that sweet spot where your voice is clear and strong, but not popping or blasting.
All right, so we've busted myths about downloads, effort, and gear. But let's be honest, everyone wants to know about the money. How do you actually monetize a podcast, especially if you aren't going for those massive download numbers?
It's the million-dollar question, right? But the good news is there are ways to make money without needing millions of downloads. We've talked about the limits of relying only on advertising.
Yeah, the whole CPM model.
Right. And while it can be great for shows with huge audiences, it's not the only option. Direct sponsorships can be incredibly effective, especially when you're starting out or focusing on a niche audience.
I was just thinking about that vintage board game podcast we mentioned. Didn't they secure a sponsorship deal?
They did, a $10,000 deal with a board game company, all because they had a small but incredibly engaged audience.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Audience relevance is key.
Exactly. It's not always about reaching the masses. It's about reaching the right people, those who are genuinely interested in what you have to say and what your sponsors have to offer.
It's like they say, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. Which is a perfect segue into our next topic. Tips and memberships. Tips and memberships, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
I love supporting creators directly.
Me too. It's like being a patron of the podcasting arts.
Exactly. And it takes the pressure off needing a zillion downloads to make it sustainable. It's about fostering a real community.
Absolutely. A community that values what you're creating.
But setting those programs up, though, can seem a little daunting, no. Any advice for our listeners who are thinking about trying it out?
For sure. First off, keep it simple, especially when you're starting out. Don't overthink it with a million different tiers or anything.
Yeah, keep it streamlined.
Exactly. Maybe start with something like a buy me a coffee link for one-time tips, or create a couple of membership levels with clear benefits.
Makes sense. Start small and grow from there.
Right. And don't be afraid to experiment a little. You could offer a free trial for your membership.
Ooh, trials. Love a good trial run. Let's people see what they're getting. What about those personal touches? I always love when creators make you feel appreciated for supporting them.
Oh, for sure. A personalized thank you can go a long way, even if it's just a quick message.
It shows you care.
It really does. Or a shout out on the next episode, maybe a handwritten postcard.
Ooh, a postcard. That's so personal. I love that.
Right. Little things like that make a difference. And of course, transparency is key. Let your listeners know how their support is helping.
Like maybe it helps you invest in better equipment or frees up time to focus on creating even better content.
Exactly. It builds trust, and that's huge when you're asking people to support you directly.
It's a two-way street for sure. You're offering great content, and they're directly contributing to making it happen.
Exactly. And it all comes back to what we've been talking about. Successful podcasting isn't about chasing some magic number.
It's about creating something valuable,
Connecting with your audience authentically.
building a community.
Yes.
It's about finding your voice, sharing your passions, and letting those passions shine through. And hey, if you can make a living doing what you love and connect with awesome people along the way, even better.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of podcasting, we want to leave you with one final thought.
What kind of impact do you want to make with your podcast?
Who is your ideal listener, and what would they find valuable?
Because when you focus on those core questions, the rest often falls into place. It's about creating something meaningful, something you're truly passionate about, and sharing it with the world.
And who knows, you might find that the most fulfilling kind of success is the one that comes from following your own path and connecting with your audience on a deeper level.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope this journey through podcasting myths and alternative monetization strategies has inspired you to approach your own podcasting journey with confidence, clarity, and a focus on what truly matters.
Until next time, happy podcasting.